It all set up. Bear with me 1 second. Oh God, I'm
Is the
just
time
doing. Let me just fix this.
problem?
A few technical errors over here, people, as always.
It's
Technical
okay.
issues. Technical issues all the time, but I should get a sound. I do need to get. I do need to get someone to do a sound check for me
We
occasionally.
have a comment.
Do we? Okay.
I think I
What's
saw
this?
notification. Yeah.
Oh no, that's just my stream software
Oh,
sort of
okay. Okay.
telling me that I've. Okay, what's up, good people? You're watching Bruddc Entertainment. I am joined with a very special guest, Mrs. Angele. How are you today,
Hi.
Angele?
How are you? Right?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fantastic. So what we'll do is we're going to start from the beginning again. Just introduce yourself briefly. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you traveled across the seas and stuff. And
Yep.
we'll start from there. Angie, I'll take it
Yep.
over to you. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
So, my name's Angel. I currently live in Malta. I'm 30 years old, and I come from Albania. I spent the first 3.5 years in my life in Albania, in an orphanage. And then I was very lucky enough that two Maltese people wanted to adopt, and I came here.
Beautiful.
um,
Okay, so
but
you're from originally from Albania,
yeah,
and then you get adopted at 4 years old by a Maltese family. And at Malta, you've told me, I remember, it's just underneath Italy. For anyone that doesn't know,
yes, the boot. You know, Italy, the boot. Keep on
yep.
zooming, 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 and then you see tiny weeny Malta with
Hmm.
Gozo next to it, and Comino in the middle.
Okay. So obviously, you mentioned that you were adopted by this family. They didn't have the best relationship. I don't know where you want to start, but you can start the first sort of memory possible that you can think of, and then obviously explain exactly how you want to. No
Yeah,
stress, no pressure on you. Just tell it from your perspective and how you want it to be.
of course, of course. So basically, the the first childhood memory, I always remember being in distress, and there was always commotion at home. So it wasn't the most positive of upbringing.
Hmm.
Um, uh, However, all I can say is I know that both of my parents tried their best, but sadly, since the nature of their relationship was at the time they had adopted me, they weren't in a good place. Um, I remember my mother had told me that she wanted to desperately save the marriage. She wanted to remain united with my father. My father at the time, unfortunately, had some habits, but despite those habits, he was a very, very good and kind-hearted man. So what happened was they decided to adopt because they thought maybe it would, rekindle everything, will become a stronger family in that. And sadly, it wasn't happily ever after for my mother. Sadly, after the adoption happened, things were more stressful for her along the way because apart from having the stress of her marriage crumbling down, she had to take care of a 4-year-old. And at the time, she was around 43 or 44 years, my mother.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So when I was around, maybe when I was 7 or 8, they decided to, cut ties, and it wasn't a nice separation. It got ugly very fast. And I hadn't seen my dad for years because at the time I was brought up by the fact that he wasn't capable of taking care of me, and you know how it is. You hear one perspective and you don't hear the other. And I spent a good chunk of my life thinking when I was young that my father didn't want to make enough time for me. Like I was brought up with the wrong impression of him.
Hmm.
Years later, when I was around maybe 12 or 13, I remember my mother and I, we were walking in a certain area in Malta, Slima,
Hmm.
and we came face to face with my father, and I hadn't seen him in years. And we all were shocked. And I remember, despite having those bad thoughts of him, the little girl inside of me was like, my father, like finally I get to see him. And thanks to that interaction alone, it it ignited that we should try again, to try get the relationship going between my father and I. So we tried it. We used to meet up maybe once a week at the time, and then as I got older, we managed to get a bond. So at least, despite having such a toxic roller coaster and so many fights and so much crying, years later, I managed to have a good relationship with my father, and I tried to maintain a good relationship with my mother as well. Um, uh, so then it came to a point where I started finding out certain things from my father's point of view.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right, okay. So basically, it wasn't portrayed my mother portrayed it a certain way,
Yeah.
that he didn't want to have contact with me, whilst it was the complete opposite. He wanted to remain in contact with me, he wanted to be there for me, just she wasn't strong enough, or I think she wasn't capable enough of having that sort of relationship. Because if me and my father are going to speak, the parents have to have some sort of communication. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I basically found out the truth, and when I found out the truth, I wasn't happy with my mother, and our relationship, it kept on having a strain between my mother and I, because as time flew by and I started finding myself, for some reason she never was with me along the way. If I would do certain accomplishments, like for example, I'm a very artistic person. I like to do like tattoos, crazy hair colors. I love to
Hmm.
write as well. And for some reason she never was supportive of that. She would always tell me, "Oh, you're wasting your time. You should focus on other things." Blah blah blah. So I had to take a decision, I remember, and I said, I can't really keep on living this double life. Like, I can't keep on living for her and not for me. And when I do something for me, I'm not sure if it's right for me. Am I making sense?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So, when I was 21, um, yes, when I was 21, I remember at the time I had a very good job.
Yeah.
Most of my life, like I was jumping from job to job, not sure what career I wanted, and obviously that made her unhappy as well with me. But then at 21, I was finally settled. My life was in play. I wasn't in the party life. I had everything going for me. And at the time, I had asked my mother, like, would you like to read what the some of my poems and some of my books? Maybe you can give me some feedback on this. And she didn't want to. She told me that she wouldn't like to not
Yeah.
waste, but she wasn't interested. She told me, I'm not into fantasy. I don't like reading that stuff. And I was like, but mom, this is something that I do for me, and I would like your feedback since you're a bookworm and you're quite good at English. I just wanted some feedback, grammar wise and structure wise.
Hmm.
And that was the time where I decided, like, listen, the relationship between my mother and I isn't working. We had a lot of bad times, and we couldn't see eye to eye. And that was at the time that I decided to leave home.
Hmm. Okay. I'll stop you there for a second because
Yeah.
obviously you said quite a bit there. But I mean, let's see. So your parents split for whatever reason. Your dad
Mhm.
had some bad habits. He was a lovely person, but he had some bad habits that caused like conflicts within the
Mhm.
relationship, and then that came to an end.
Yep. Yep.
And then obviously you were brought up with your mum. What was it like being brought up with your mum? Like again, what was it like also your mum telling you that your dad didn't want to see you?
It was very stressful, and I used to look up to that woman. I would always want her approval, always seeking for her guidance, but I always found a hard wall with her. For some reason, I could never get why she interpreted things that way. So being raised by my mother it was quite the challenge, and
Mm.
I can only imagine for her the challenge that she had with me, because
Yeah.
I'm a teenager, rebellion, going out, you know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then to meet you, you met your dad a bit later on, and then you found out that your dad. I think you find this really strange sometimes that some women aren't able to sort of like, it's almost like it is just doing the right thing for the child. Like,
Uh-huh.
you can have a bad relationship, you can have a bad relationship with a partner. The relationship between you and that man is finished, but that man is still a good dad. And I find, especially nowadays, like people get separated from their dads like all the time. And it's they're not given a fair chance. Like, the women, for whatever and it happens on both sides. The women can get jealous, especially if he's moved on and he's got a
Yeah,
partner. And if vice versa, if the mum finds another guy or whatever, and
because
it can become. Mhm.
originally they were lovers. They
Yeah.
were united, and it's natural to feel that way. Um, but I don't agree how how things went down. I don't agree that because she take the heartache that she orchestrated it that way, that my father didn't want to be a part of my life. Yeah, it could have been done better. I understand her point of view because as a woman, when I was heartbroken, I would interpret things differently. I would become jealous or say certain things. So in reality, I put myself in her shoes, and I can understand completely where she's coming from. Because if I had a failed marriage and I had all that stress, I think I would react the same. So in reality, you can't even judge as well
No, 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 no.
when
It's
somebody's going through something.
Yeah, some people, they never, like, if you put and most of the time you've put your whole life into that person. That person's been your whole life for 20 years,
Exactly.
and then for whatever reason it's over, and it's like half of your life has been with that person. So that sometimes that heartbreak can, like, it just doesn't go away unless you're
Yeah.
able to move. Even if you're able to move on and find someone else, that helps. But
Mhm.
if you're not able to move on and find someone else, then you're just stuck thinking this man is happy with his other family, other wife, or whatever it is. And some women can get really bitter when it comes to that, and then
Yep.
obviously they transfer it onto the child. So in terms of like, what was the relationship like with your mum then? Sort of like, just you and her, like on a day-to-day basis. Was it a nice, loving childhood, sort of, or?
Um, I would be lying if I said we didn't have our moments because we everyone has their good moments. So I'm not
Hmm.
going to portray her as the bad person.
Yep.
But I can safely say that due to the fact that, because my mother is the type of person where she always holds on to the past, and she um, holds the things you did in the past against you. So whenever something comes up, boom,
Yep.
throws it out there. So when you're constantly living in the past, it's hard to maintain a good relationship because with be having a good time, I would do something that triggers her, boom. You're like your father, boom. You you're not acting well, boom. You're never going to be you're always going to be a loser. Always certain comments. So I don't know.
What's that like? What's that like when you hear like a parent say that to you? It's not like a normal thing to say to your child. Like, you obviously if a child keeps like not listening and keep misbehaving, then you can threaten them and say to them, like, if you keep doing this, you're going to end up like that. But when people say it a different way, like, for instance, you're a loser and all the rest of it, putting you down like that, that's a very tough thing to hear, if I imagine, from a parent.
It is tough because I get where her heart is coming from because she wanted to do it to get me in the right direction, but my sort of character, I couldn't handle it. So, unfortunately, that sort of upbringing made a lot of damage in the sense that I didn't believe in myself. It took me a while to start believing in myself. And I think I can say now at the age of 30, I have more confidence. I now know what I want to do in this life, and I now am happy with who I am. Because at a
Mhm.
point, whenever I would want to do something new, after I left home, we had stopped contact. And when I wanted to try something new, a new job, a new hobby, I would always, in the back of my mind, you're a loser, you're not going to make it. You never made it. So that sort of, those negative words, they leave an impact. They do,
Hmm. Hmm.
unfortunately.
And you also said that that you've had to cut ties with your mum and you haven't spoken to her for 4 years. I
Yeah.
mean, I understand you're happier, but I mean, like, obviously because there's no more conflict. But what does
Happy.
that? Yeah, yeah, I get it, I get it. But what you explain it better from your perspective on how you came to that decision.
Well, um, the first time we cut ties, I think it was about a year later.
Mhm.
I wanted to give her a surprise because when I left home, she was very worried. She was concerned that I wouldn't be able to get an apartment, wouldn't be able to be up on my feet. She thought the worst of me. So I remember I had contacted her. It was Christmas, and I told her like I have a surprise for you. I managed to buy my own apartment. Blah blah blah. And she wasn't that thrilled about it. She was like, ah, okay, all right. I was expecting more of a, ooh, like, I
Well
thought you
done.
were,
Yeah, well
yeah,
done. Some sort of like
like
appraisal.
all these years she was worried that I wouldn't make it because
Mhm.
that was her concern. And I was like, whatever, that's who she is. And I didn't think anything by it. And we sort of tried to maintain a relationship. Um, then we met up. And again, she would start mentioning the past. Then she mentioned that regarding the apartment, I was biting more than I can chew with this apartment because it's too big for a person who was by themselves. And I was like, this is happening again. She's
Yeah.
not saying, oh, you managed to get something. Because here in Malta to buy an apartment is like this. And this was the lowest budget I found at the time. So I was very disappointed in that alone. And I was like, and then I realized, I said, this is never going to work out. Me and her, we're never going to see eye to eye. If I keep on maintaining this relationship just because I love her and I want her in my life, I'm going to end up I'm not going to end up healing. I'm not going to end up being the strong person that I need to be because I knew I needed to cut her off to keep on growing. Because when she would come back in my life, I would start doubting myself. I'd start doubting myself and not feeling good about myself, all because she's still living in the past. So we decided to cut ties. It wasn't a nice day that day. We had a row that day, and then fast forward 2 years after, I tried to contact her again. I needed to talk to her about a something personal. She did not answer. She saw my messages. She did not answer. I called her several times because it was an urgent matter. And I was like, okay, she doesn't want to speak to me. And at the time it was February and my birthday was a few months after in April. And I wake up the day of my birthday at 6:30 in the morning to a very lengthy message from her telling me not to talk to her anymore, telling me that I was the bad child, that I hurt the family, and that I should never contact her again. Kept on mentioning the things in the past, and she ended it with a happy birthday. And I
Wow.
was like,
Wow.
I called you for an emergency months ago, and you completely ignored me, which is fine. Then my birthday comes up, and I see a very beautiful, sarcastic message from you to never contact you again. And that day, I was like, I woke up and I said, and she's never going to work out. She's not doing it. I don't know for what reason. I can't say because I'm not in her head.
Yeah.
But this is not a healthy relationship for the both of you. Because apparently
No.
I trigger her to say certain things. And then I'm sorry to say, whoever is watching this, I have to block her. I couldn't have any more access because that message. I remember I spent the morning crying, howling, crying, crying, crying. Like, why? She didn't want to talk to me. Why did she ignore me for an emergency? And now she came to do this. And and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So
Wow. I mean, when I hear things like this, I mean, it might be sad to hear, but it kind of seems like she's blaming you for the breakdown of her relationship. In my mind, listening to it, I hear like they were going through a relation. You, her, and your adopted dad. They were in a relationship and it wasn't quite working, and they thought a child would make it better.
mhm.
And it does seem like that you're being blamed for it. And sometimes as well with adopted parents, it's a very sad thing to say sometimes. Like, when people adopt children, sometimes they don't make that bond with that child properly.
And I've been told this by my therapist. I've been told this by numerous people, and I do not believe it because my father loved me as though I was his DNA.
Yeah.
My father believed in me in everything. He believed in me. In the things that I used to say, no, it can't be true. Since I was young, I remember my father would tell me at the time, oh, you should work in this company. I'm not going to mention it because I know you'll be very good at it. And I was like, nah, it's not true. 2 years later, I worked in the company, I got promoted, and I was the youngest business sales executive in that company. I was like,
Wow.
Dad, you were right. And then about on my writing, my father always tell me, never forget your books, never forget your books. And I believe that he knew me more than I knew myself. But sadly, because I looked up so much to my mother, when he believed in me, I didn't see it. And after we managed to have a relationship, which didn't last for long, because unfortunately he had passed, I started to realize. And after he passed away, I realized. I said, my father is the most beautiful man in the world. He, despite having a drinking problem, I'm going to say it. He was such a kind person. He always wanted to make peace. He never liked conflict. He always used to tell me, "Your mother loves you. She's just stressed. Go make friends." He always wanted to keep everything united. So my father did love me.
Even when they weren't together, was he telling you this?
Yes, yes,
Wow, wow.
yes.
That's and that
Go to
goes
your
and
mother. She loves you. And I would be like, yes. And I believe my mother does love me. I do believe it. I'm not saying, ah, she was a bad woman. I am not saying that at all. I am saying that s- sadly, this relationship between my mother and my father, my mother had certain expectations. She wanted the happy family, she wanted la bella vita, but sadly, she didn't get it. So what happened was she set her goal so high, and disappointment after disappointment, instead of trying to get out the positive out of things, she just let it consume her. And nowadays, I mean, I feel sorry because in life you cannot live in the past, and you cannot let whatever whatever bad things come to your life, you cannot let it take over you. You always have
Mhm.
to fight because there's good and evil in this life. And I feel sorry that she didn't manage to accept what happened and try to move on. Because if she did, we would be in a better place, I believe. I believe.
Wow.
So I
It
think
it's
the moral of the story is that no matter what you have in your life, I mean, I've been homeless. I've been I've had so many problems. I lost myself so many times. I've been to rock bottom. I've had those type of thoughts. But you know what? At the end of the day, I just say, I have faith. I have God with me, even though sometimes it feels that He abandons me. And always remain positive and never let whatever problem you have eat you up. Talk it out. Go to therapy. I go to therapy, and I think it's awesome. And just live life in a much more positive light. That's what I want to the message I would want to give out today when it comes to these type of occurrences in life.
wow. So you've been through some very dark days and you've overcome it. Um, which is amazing. And we spoke last time about that, about your faith, and sometimes that faith,
Yep,
that little bit of faith and belief. Even though we can be cynical sometimes when things aren't going our right way, we can
yep.
still we still pray and everything. We're like, oh, why can't you help me? I'm praying, blah blah blah. But even just the fact that you're actually doing that, I think that's what gets people through it. Every time I've spoken to someone and they've told me, like, they've been abused as a child, they've been through some horrible stuff, like, it's that little bit of faith inside them that's kept them alive. It's very easy for someone that's been through some serious stuff to sort of become very negative and try and hurt people.
And,
There are people out there like that, and they just want to hurt as many people as they can. But I mean, it's sad to
and
see
help
that,
themselves as
yeah.
well.
Yes, of course, you're hurting yourself. It's like if someone slaps you, someone hurts you, whatever, and you if you hold on to that anger forever, rather than just forgiving them, if you hold on to that anger forever, every time you see that person, you're angry.
Hmm.
You're just taking that energy out of your own body.
Yep,
So yes, it's annoying sometimes when people do you wrong in life, and then you have to be the bigger person and forgive them. We spoke about that a lot as
yep.
well. And you know, especially with your mum going through the breakup and everything, there will be. It does seem to, like, listening to everything you've told me and how you said it to me. It does seem like, you know, that you were being like, you know, every time she sees you, it's kind of like a reminder of what sort of went wrong in the
Yep,
past and stuff like that.
yep,
And you know, I don't know the full depth of what you, because you know sometimes as kids we're bad and we do bad things as kids, you
yeah.
know. So and I'm pretty sure you've done one or two things maybe there.
Yes, I have nothing to hide. I was a
Yeah,
very rebellious child. I'm not going to shy away from that.
yeah,
I
yeah. So,
I have nothing to hide. I mean, I've done all my faults. I've done bad things, but I don't let those bad things make me label me. I learn from my mistakes, and at the time, I used to tell her like, I know I'm not being the best child, but I know that I'm going to be good in time. I know I'm going to settle down. I just wanted the time I used to live with her. I just wanted to live free. I didn't want to be tied down, so to speak, and I didn't want to cause any harm.
hmm
And she couldn't get it. I mean, we couldn't. Our perspectives were too different. She wanted one thing, I wanted another, and I'm a type of person where if I want something, I will do it,
hmm
no matter what. And
hmm
sometimes it gets you in trouble.
hmm did you? I must ask. Did you ever know or meet your real? No, you probably haven't met them, but like your
No,
biological parents and stuff like that. Is there any sort of like information there at all? Or?
unfortunately, at the time when I was born, the documents presented, they weren't real. Like, because I remember, uh, I I we had these papers at home, and
Yep.
I had the name and the names of the birth parents, but
Yep.
apparently what was given was false. So there's nothing to find there, unfortunately.
Wow. 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 Do you yeah, I mean, did you ever sort of bring that up to maybe? Did you ever? I don't know. I don't know, because when you're adopted, like, do you ever feel like you've really making a strong bond with that parent? I don't know. You obviously had strong with your dad, but did you ever feel that you had that real strong relationship, or do you feel that you were treated differently to maybe perhaps if you were their real child, sort of thing, like, you know?
Again, I feel that I was, again, despite me and my mother having such a bad relationship, I still love her. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I mean, even my father, for me, they're not my adoptive parents, they're my parents. That's
Yeah,
how
of
I will
course, of
always
course,
feel about
of
them.
course, of course, of course.
So I believe that despite having the ups and downs, I did feel love, just not the way I wanted it to be. It was a different sort of love. And I mean, the day I forgave whatever happened between me and my mother, it was on Mother's Day. I remember it was 2 days after my therapy session, and I was talking about therapy with my best friend, and we were discussing a lot of points, and then it clicked, and I said, okay, my mom did what she did because I was a trigger, because I reminded her a lot of things about my father. So when she's reminded of my father, about what happened, then she remembers about what happened between them, which she was never over. So it was a constant, sorry, it was a constant wound, always getting picked at for her. So at
Hmm.
the end of the day, I do not blame her, because
Yeah.
she has her own reasons, she has her own upbringing, she has her own beliefs, and that's why I came at peace with it. And I don't hold a grudge. I
Hmm.
spent most of my life holding a grudge against her, and I've ruined a lot of opportunities in life because I was so angry about her. I couldn't move on. And when you can't move on from something, it ruins you. But the day I managed to move on from it and I accepted it as is, that day I remember it was like a weight, a big, big weight lifted off my shoulder. So it's I feel happy that I forgave not her, I forgave the situation and accepted how it was, how my life came out. Because in reality, if she and my father hadn't adopted me, God knows what would have happened to me in Albania. And at the time, there was a war in the '97, so it wasn't the best place to be.
Yeah.
So I mean, I consider myself a very, very lucky woman, even though I've had a hard life. But that's what makes life beautiful, because at least I know that the hardships have made me think more.
Hmm. Sorry.
I heard. Okay, okay. No worries.
It's
So yeah,
soundish almost. Yep, sorry about that. So I mean, you seem like a healed woman. Like you're at peace with everything that's happened.
no worries.
Um, do you, I can't help but think that maybe you in like 3 or 4 years or whatever, whenever it is, there's still hope that maybe one day she will let go of the past and start from the start a fresh start.
And if that day happens, I will be with arms wide open and happily pick up where we left off. I
Hmm.
mean, I wanted to reach out to her recently again, but my therapist advised me that if she's not ready, there's no nothing good is going to come out of it. I mean, I'm healed, I'm moved on, and she's still stuck in the past, so we'll still have the same problem. And I don't want to risk her getting to me because her opinions and her word is so valuable to me that maybe she'll say certain things and I wouldn't want to go 10 steps back. So for my own reasons and health wise, mentally,
Hmm.
unless she's ready to start a relationship without picking up the past, it cannot happen, and it's
What what
impossible to.
what would you say to her if you could like what would you say to her if you could speak to her now?
That I love her, and that I know that right now she's hearing me say that, you did so much. I know I did so much. I mean, we all do mistakes. I mean, but in reality, what God forgave us for our sins. Jesus forgave us for our sins. God knows that we are sinful because we are sinful creatures. And you are my mother, and I would like that we get past this and just move on because life is short, and it's a pity that you and I can't be together at such a beautiful time because life is beautiful. That's the message I would like to give her, and that I've changed for the better, and I'm a very I'm very happy with my life, but it would be better if you could manage to share that with me.
Wow, beautiful message, beautiful message. Maybe one day she'll, you never know, maybe she'll see that message one day, and children, all of us, we all test our parents at some stage in our
It's
lives. We
natural.
all do it. Some do
Only
it,
natural.
some do it worse than others. There's no
Yep.
denying that. And it's as a parent, when children do stuff, like, you don't realize how much it could like really hurt you, like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're like, if you're, even for instance, if you just go out and leave and they don't know where you are and stuff like
Yep.
that,
Yep.
the worry that that causes in a parent, like, it's
It's
you can't even
unfair. It's
you can't even explain it. So it's I just want to, like, just put that out there. So sometimes it's really hard, but me myself, I'm a parent myself to three
oh,
children. So it's, yes, I think I'm quite a fair person. Like, I understand that stuff happens occasionally. People, you step
yep.
out, but it's I just don't know whether I could hold that long of a grudge. Like, if
Because
I'm
that's the
angry.
thing.
Hmm.
The grudge kept on going between us. I mean,
Yeah,
I was very rebellious, and I know why I was rebellious because you know when you're in a certain negative environment,
yeah,
it's going to take its toll on you. But I never did it out of callous, like she thought I used to do. I never
yeah.
did it because I didn't care. I just did it because, you know what, I'm carefree. I need to do this. I want to do this. I want to live life. Blah blah blah. But I never did it with cruel intentions. And
Hmm.
when there were times that we both were cruel to each other, we would be like, "What are we doing?" Like. So yeah, I mean, everybody does mistakes. That's all I can say. Everybody does mistakes, and as
Hmm.
long as you own up to it, like I have, I've done a lot of bad, like I said before. But I am not that person that I was 10 years ago. I'm 30 now. God
Hmm.
forbid I keep on doing the stuff that I did before.
What's your most happiest memory of you and your mum?
We had gone to the UK. I remember, and me and my mom we love shopping. That's the one thing that we agree on. Handbags, clothes, shoes. We just love it. And
Hmm.
it was a beautiful, beautiful holiday. I'm telling you, we got along. We did not fight one bit. As soon as we landed in Malta, we
Wow.
started getting at each
Wow.
other.
Wow. So that kind of it does kind of suggest that like there's just too many bad memories in maybe
The
sometimes you
house.
need to change the house, definitely the house. Like, it's amazing. I speak to some people sometimes and they're like they've been through some crazy stuff and I'm like, have you tried, like, have you tried moving? And they're like, no, I'm in the same house. I'm like, you're in the same house that you've been abused in and all the rest of it, and you're wondering why you
Yep,
can't move on past it. Like, it's the environment, like it triggers memories and everything like that, so maybe that will be the way forward another day, but yes, it's tough. It's tough
it is.
sometimes. It is
It
it
is.
is a tough one. And one of the things with parents as well sometimes is like, for instance, your dad left or she was kicked out for whatever it was, sometimes, like, some mums will feel like, why do you want to know that man for? He left us, sort of thing. And that,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, you'll
Like he
get that.
abandoned us.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
put us in this situation.
yeah, and that hurts. That really does hurt them. Like, it's because they're still holding on. They're still holding on to what was, rather than just accepting that that's over. It's new. Like,
Exactly.
nowadays, so many children like are in these custody battles now, just because
It's sad.
it's just because, like, they don't get on with the partner, and it's like they're two different. There's two different relationships that you have. The relationship that he has with the child is a different one that he has with you, and if he's not with
Exactly.
you anymore, it's hard. Like, we're not robots, we can't turn the
No, no,
emotions off.
we can't just switch off and say,
We
because
can't.
the
It's
thing
hard.
is, as a third person, like it's easy for us
It
to
is
say,
very easy, very
oh,
easy.
you gotta do this if something good, but if you're separating. But the thing is, in the moment, that's why I no longer am angry at what happened to the whole family,
Hmm.
because at the moment she couldn't control her feelings. She felt that she had to be that way. Um, for she had her own reasons, and but the thing is, I believe that if there was more communication and less pointing fingers,
Yep.
it would have been better, because we had like it was always about the blame game. Ah, it was your father's fault. Ah, it's your fault. You treated me like crap. Your father treated me. It was always like that, instead of
Hmm.
what happened. Why did the relationship crumble? What happened in our marriage? What could have caused it? I personally, I was engaged a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and whenever we'd have a quarrel, I always wanted to talk things. I always talk. Talk to myself in the sense, okay, why did I react like this? What caused this? I like to have a breakdown of to see where it all went wrong. So
Hmm.
at least I can have peace with myself and with my partner. I mean, my ex-partner. We stopped, and till this day we're still friends. Because
Hmm.
we even though we had to stop because he was messaging other women, but since we communicated well, and I didn't let my anger, which was very hard,
Yep.
take over, we managed to be like, okay, now we know why he did what he did, I did what I did. And we managed to sort it out, shake hands, and that's it, which is very hard for most people to do. Because, like we said before, we're blinded by our emotions and we're like, oh, I have to feel this way. I can't let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep, I know exactly what you mean. And in this day and age, like, it's going crazy at the minute. People are splitting up,
Mm.
and one person or the other. It is normally men that can't handle the breakup, and it is very common. Like, recently in the UK, we had a situation where a guy broke up with his partner, and she didn't want to be with him anymore, and he done the worst thing to her and
Yep.
her family members. So it's just what can you say? Love's one of those crazy emotions, and sometimes when people they just can't flick the switch and just say, look, it's over. They just can't accept it, and then boom, it's
Um,
tough.
it is tough, because what I can say is, I feel that when that happens, because they can't accept reality, and they will do everything in their power to try stay in that relationship, or you know what I mean. But again, it all boils down to communication, as
Hmm.
well as being spiritual. Because if
Yep.
you don't have the main thing apart from your body and your mind, you have to have a spiritual connection,
Yep.
because it starts from there, in my opinion. It starts from somewhere. And if that is not sorted, how can anything else be sorted? You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
If your mindset is not in a positive, instead of spiritual, let's say, if you're not in a positive way, or you try reason things out, how are you going to sort out the things around you? If I'm explaining myself well.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Um, so obviously now you've mentioned that you're doing writing. You're in the process of writing stuff, and you're writing books based on like your traumatic childhood and stuff, and you're turning it into a. I'll let you explain what you're doing. You explain it.
So basically, my motto in life is to do like my books are fantasy, okay? They're based on vampires and witches, and
Very
I will
good.
be including things that I went through. So the book will be about emotional traumas that I went through, twisted in this fantasy world, and I would like to give like a message, like no matter what you're faced, get something positive. So in the book, I will be explaining the time when I was homeless. I will be interpreting how I felt at that time and what I did to get out of it. The times where I had some other childhood traumas, I will be including them in my other characters. So the book is going to be based on me, just spread out on all my characters, because I don't want to mention certain things, and
Yep, of course.
you know what I mean. It's not a biography.
Yep.
The book I'm writing it mainly because I want to give a message, not to give a biography. So
Yep.
I can give a good message and at the same time a nice story. Because why not? Everybody likes a good book.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So I think what we'll do, we'll end it here, but we're going to end it with your final message to your mum. Speaking to her now, what would you like to say to her?
So, mom, it's me, your mischievous daughter, Angel. I'm no longer that mindless teenager I was years ago. I really would like that would sort something out, because in reality, I mean, it's a pity that a mother and daughter can't be together. And remember, we live one life, and I wouldn't wish that we would never see each other again. I would like that we get over whatever happened. Um, Forgive but never forget, as you always say. But important that if we do to maintain a relationship, we cannot live in the past, because we will never be able to move forward, and we will never be able to get to know each other the proper way. And I believe that me and you are worth getting to know each other and worth building up a relationship. And I will always love you.
Wow, beautiful message. Guys, that was Angie. Angel. She's on TikTok. I'm gonna tag her in here. This video will be played live again on TikTok in about 10-15 minutes. So you're welcome to watch it back as well on TikTok
Yeah.
or on anything. Angel, our second interview, fantastic. Love having you on. I'm sure we're gonna do loads more stuff together.
Yep, for
Guys,
sure.
everyone else, thank you for tuning in. Sit tight. Interview's gonna be played live shortly.
Bye.
I'm just shutting it down.
Do,
Do.
do, do.